I am currently 18 years old, and I spend all day playing anime tower defenses in my room. This has been a constant for me, starting when on one faithful day at the age of 12, I discovered the granddaddy of anime tower defenses, All-Star Tower Defense. This genre of games has been a regular in my life for the past 6 years, stretching through all of my teenage years. Today, the genre, to say the least, is in the worst spot it has ever been, with the current largest titan of the genre, anime vanguards, pulling barely 30k CCU after a Naruto update. That is one of the big three, and it can't even hold on to 30k CCC. Spamming the letter C there, CCU. It used to pull hundreds of thousands on new update releases. But before getting in the end of the genre, we must start at the beginning to truly see what went wrong and what has caused this all. As stated before, the first anime tower defense game on Roblox was All-Star Tower Defense. Compared to the games today, this is an ancient old grandpa with nothing unique. However, with it being the first, we must look at it in the lens we did when it came out. Like games of today, the game operated on adding updates, which introduced new units that power crept the last. But unlike games of today, the grind for these units were never percent based. You would have to beat a stage X amount of times to evolve these OP units. ASTD would continue like this, adding new systems like orbs and unique, at the time, abilities, like controlling units and rewinding. ASTD would remain the solo king, until one day, the man who left it all behind would appear. Anime Adventures. Now, Anime Adventures would cause this anime tower defense genre to reach heights never seen before, but with this height, the largest and most greediest butterfly effect in the genre would start. Anime Adventures, as you know, introduced the concept of traits, and with this system is the bane of the genre, the 0.1% single placement unique trait. This trait is seen in anime tower defense games today, with games like Anime Vanguards, Anime Last Stand. If you're making a anime tower defense, you have the 0.1% unique trait. But this was not the only sin Anime Adventures would create. This would also create the concept of needing to spend hours upon hours doing the same thing over and over again for a rare meta unit that had a drop based on a percent rather than it being guaranteed like ASTD. Now these rates, bro, I remember spending hours grinding for Boros, grinding for Doflamingo. I never got them. I can't even remember a single percentage drop based unit I ever got, besides Banner, of course. I know I got Shisui, and I also got Toji, when the game came back. But that's not the point. These two games would clash, being the big two in the genre, with, I can't really remember, but I know there were smaller games around this time. But one day, a sad yet predictable event would occur around the Christmas of 2023. Anime Adventures was strucken down with the DMCA. However, as we know today with today context, Anime Vanguards received the same thing, and all they had to do was stop uploading copyrighted content. So Anime Adventures really took the money and ran, and created one of the biggest problems in the genre forever. But this would lead to what I would like to call the Great Pirate Era of the genre. Fruity-sama, Fruit-Jaeger, whatever you call him, was so incompetent. He wasn't updating ASTD. I still don't know what this guy does. I think he huffs glue all day. Maybe he eats crayons. I don't know. So the title for the king was anyone's for the taking. The most prominent game from this era was Anime Last Stand. Now this game was released 2 months after, I think, Anime Adventures was taken down. This game was created by the one and only, the largest ASTD YouTuber, Blamspot. Now, say what you want about Blamspot. I think this guy is the brand and the boss of YouTube, if that makes sense, where he's just churning stuff out. You'll understand what I mean if you just take 1 second looking at his channel. It's a respectable hustle. I'm not going to hate on a guy if it's a hustle. Especially, you don't have to pay Blamspot on, paying these games. But again, I'm rambling. This game, much like Anime Adventures, included rare traits, which usually required money to spend to be obtained. I know you could farm rerolls. I know now you can get trillions upon trillions of rerolls, but when the game was out, I remember seeing nag blocks get hyped for Overlord. They were not as farmable as they are today. If you wanted something glitched, you definitely would have to spend robux. But again, it was still farmable, which is nice. Now, Blamspot was the owner of this game until, if I remember correctly, there was drama after the Dragon Ball update. This update dropped when Akira Toriyama passed. I know you had to, like, subscribe to Blamspot to get the Shenron unit. And, like, you didn't actually have to subscribe to him. It was, like, it would just do it sometimes. Which is, I'm gonna be honest, really scummy. I mean, the dude died, and you're farming subs off that. That's whatever. But after this drama, Blamspot was gone. And the game was now under the wings of Boss Studios, owned by the one and only Brandon Ha, also known as Brandon the Boss. Brandon the Boss was not new to the scene. He created a tower defense. I think this was during the ASTD era. It was like Shinobi Tower Defense. I actually played it, and like, you know, finding out years later it was owned by him is kind of crazy. But that's cool, you know, he's always been here. It's not like he's a newcomer. But Brandon the Boss would shift focus to weekly updates, adding insane power creep. I mean, dude, week after week, you would get the unit, roll glitched, get the unit the next week, get glitched over and over and over and over and over. I mean, there was cool stuff like World 2, adding elements that kept the game fresh. There was quote-unquote new game modes. They added like one unique thing, that's whatever. Anyway, Brandon had officially factorized the tower defense genre, churning his golden goose for all its little golden eggs. Now, I know these games have always been a business. ASTD had abhorrent collabs. Who remembers the 24K Golden collab or the Bakugan collab? I do, that was crazy. But for the first time, the games had truly become a slop factory. But as you know, Anime Last Stand was not the only titan of this new era. The, I would argue, highest quality anime tower defense game ever to be created would be Anime Vanguards, releasing in, I think, September of 24? I think, yeah, that sounds about right. Now, Anime Vanguards faced the same problems that all these new games have. There was insane drop rates with, I know on release, 0.75% egress. You couldn't macro the stage either, unless you had an advanced macro, and it had the 0.1% monarch trait. But I'm not going to criticize it that much, because this has become the norm of the genre. These insane drop rates are now what the games are about. It is no longer about completing a stage a bunch to get OT units, guaranteed, like only 4 clears. It is all about spending hours upon hours macroing. Now, AV was without a doubt the king of quality. It was not as slop as Anime Last Stand. They did not suffer from insane weekly power creep like Anime Last Stand did. Now, the statement was true until something I've seen. I watched a video. Power creep in Anime Vanguards is insane now. Updates are now basically Anime Last Stand updates, but not weekly. And this is crazy coming from Anime Vanguards, because these devs, bro, maybe devs, owners, they are so snobby, especially towards Brandon and like Anime Last Stand, if you remember all that beef. This is like insanely hypocritical. This was the quality game. This was the game with unique passives that made units powerful in their own way, but now it's just insane million of damage meta unit. Roll Monarch, obtain Memoria, roll on that too. Now I forgot to mention Memorias. This is the dumbest system I've ever seen. They add quote-unquote buffs to the units, but all it does is extend the grind and remove passives from the units that would have been there if Memorias didn't exist. The game is basically just Anime Last Stand, except the updates take longer to come out. Seeing the pillar of quality in the genre fall in the same habits as the slop paints a scary future for these games. The player counts of today speak for themselves, bro. 30,000 after an update based on one of the big 3, Naruto. That should be pulling crazy amount of numbers. Now, I know Naruto's not hype nowadays like stuff like Jujutsu Kaisen, but again, you should be getting crazy players. Ultimately, what has caused the death of the genre is needing to macro for insane drop rate units, and power creep when it is not needed. These games mean so much to me. They were literally my teenage years, and I know that is one of the most embarrassing words a human being could utter, but that is literally my life. I hope AV locks in, and the damage slop isn't the norm. What was once a grind based off of skill, using units in unique ways, has been turned into a macro large numbers simulator. Maybe it has always been slop and I was just naive to seeing it because I loved it. But that's just what the games are now. Bye bye, subscribe, I'll see you soon. Okay, now that the scripted part is done, I'm just gonna ramble a little. I know there's I forgot to mention so much stuff, like the lesser games of today, but all I can say is they're the same thing. Like, I know, okay, I made a video on Anime Crusaders. People are really mad about that, but I think what I said is completely true. That update is literally the same thing. It has been the same thing over and over, and I'm not gonna sit down on my knees and say, you guys are right. No, that update is literally what the Dragon Ball update was, and that was like exactly what the Fate update was. I'm not gonna defend that. It's the same update over and over. I would rather have unique stuff. Like, AV at least has unique game modes, unique events. It keeps players engaged. AC, no. Universal Tower Defense, I know they're trying, to do unique stuff, which I'm excited for. But again, there's the trait problem, there's the percentage drop, but again, there's stuff like pity, which I know I forgot to mention in the videos, but there's stuff like pity that I think is awesome. I also forgot to mention Anime Rangers, which is arguably the sloppiest to slop. Especially, you know, the OG. I think now they're trying to add unique game modes, which I think is kind of cool. That is kind of awesome. But OG, bro, you remember that free run update that added the, what, 0.00 whatever trait that took, I think, years to get? Oh, I didn't even mention Anime Defenders, bro. Oh my god, but, you know, some don't count that as an anime tower defense. But, you know, it had the trait problem. But that was more like a pet simulator type game, if that makes sense, where it's based off on trading. But I guess that's really all I have to say. I'm still gonna play these games, of course. This is my life. I'm never gonna give this up until it's wiped off the face of the platform. But yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed. Jeez, I can't even say enjoyed. Enjoyed. Bye bye. Subscribe.